Can you take us back to the very beginning?
Well, it started out almost 10 years before the first office set up. I had the experience from my dad and my grandfather, who had ran companies around the industry. So my father was an electrical contractor, so obviously had to put the pipes in the ground sometimes. And so I thought it would be a good idea to go buy a small excavator and see if I could make a business at it. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any work. I ran ads in the local paper. Tried to do some internet advertising, pamphlets to hand out, but really I ended up being very stuck. So I went and got a job operating a machine for a guy doing a drain in Port Phillip Bay, while also chasing work on the weekends outside of that. Was really struggling to get any sort of traction because I was rocking up 19, 20 years old with a machine, trying to quote the jobs, and no one gave me any sort of respect or thought that I could deliver. I changed the business name, left the ABN to Starbuck and Son Contracting. I would rock up and they would assume that I was the son of Starbuck and Son. And then if they ever asked me about if my dad was coming down, I would say, yep, but he's in the background just on another job. But of course, he never ended up turning up. We built up, got a second machine, and then went out and started contracting a little bit more. First employee came about when I was around 23. I was always trying really hard to deliver a good product and a good service and rock up on time and do what I needed to do. And so they never needed to call my dad, even though he would have been very confused. On a rainy day with one of my friends driving my ute, and I jumped in the back and I had all of these star pickets with flags on them that said site cuts, 30 years experience or something along those lines, even though I was 25. Will beat any price, please give me a call. And I hammered one in on the end of every single driveway leading up to the block. So they would rock up, they would walk, and then there's a sign that says, call this bloke to do your site cut. I ended up winning the first two, and then it sort of snowballed from there, getting about 15 different houses and a few $1 million worth of trucking and digging from whacking in flags at the end of a driveway.
So when Jimmy and I first started dating, he was doing everything himself. He had like staff in trucks, a couple of trucks, and he had, I think, one other person in a digger. But after the actual workday was done, he was doing all the invoices. I watched him do it and I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, you have to save it as a PDF, or there needs to be a better way than doing this. So yeah, he sort of just managed everything. He also chased all the money, made sure that he was getting paid. I started helping him a little bit more just because I could see that there were some inefficiencies, I suppose. So I just took over, I got rid of the Word documents and I started doing things in Excel just to help him outside of my own full-time work. Setting up the home office, that was a really big achievement at the time that we did that, and having a couple of staff in the office. So I started working for Jimmy full-time, and we hired someone to help with the boys that were on site, manage operations sort of.
They needed some help just doing random data things. So I started by typing up Jimmy's handwritten notes. So in the beginning, everything was in Jimmy's head. There were things that he did that you couldn't understand why, because it just made sense. And he was in the machines, in the trucks, in the office, doing the quotes, doing the invoices. And then Stephanie and I would pretty much type them up. And then eventually, as he got busier, Stephanie took more care of the account side. And then I started moving into taking care of the trucks and where they would go. It was pretty funny because we would do some of these big jobs, and then our office was literally in the front room of his house. Before we rearranged it, it was just like one corner of the room, and then like he had like some house items on this side. People would come into the office, they'd be like, oh, and then they would realise it was a house. There was never any truck parking either. If any of the boys came with like their bigger cars or the bigger trucks, and we just block off the whole street.
The losing money is a really difficult part because you sit there and the exact same business structure and setup that every successful company ends up having means that if it gets too risky or anything else, then they go bankrupt. In 2015, I copped the 1, 2, 3 punch. And the biggest lessons that I learned there after 3 companies went broke in a very short period of time, taking me for $1 million, was that to trust your business sense. That was pretty shitty at that point. Looking back now about how that was, the challenge is that you actually want to support your customers, but you need to protect yourself. Not only do you have to try and protect the family life and protect the home life to try and make that happy, even though they might have done something at work that makes you so frustrated and angry, you've also got to be able to hold them accountable and responsible for that screw up, and to keep that separation's really hard.
It's difficult sometimes to have conversations about work because you can get really worked up and there's very high emotions in the conversations because we are in a relationship. You know, we have like our little fights and things like that you wouldn't necessarily have with your boss if you were just an employee. You probably would tread a little bit lighter in some of the conversations. It's challenging to separate our relationship, but I think that's with any friendship or any partnership that is so involved in each other's lives through work. It's difficult to have that sort of separation. You just can't.
I definitely haven't got it right over the years. I still struggle. A lot of my friends work for me. A lot of family have worked for me over the time. My first employee was my dad's best friend. He still works for me now. How do we keep those lines from not being blurred? I don't think you can. I think you have to accept it a little bit. But the challenges that come with it are heavy. My first daughter is 9. My second daughter is 18 months old. My first daughter, I ended up getting a divorce from her mum, and we split up when she was 3 months old. And I ended up getting some custody of her around 6 months, and I needed to be slower, but in a really good, positive way. Everyone sees it as being a negative because you're losing control of maybe the finances, or you're losing control of that job and what it's doing, and you didn't make as much money, which you don't make anywhere near the amount of money as the company grows. You're exchanging high profit for volume. But if you standardise your procedures, you can make enough money. You make good money still on the volume, but it means you don't have those peaks and troughs. Means that you don't make 50 grand one week and lose 20 grand the next. You make 30 grand every week, and that's actually what a business that's slightly larger needs to do.
I think it's always stressful for any sort of couple growing a large business together. Stephanie's in accounts. In the early days, people didn't pay us on time. It meant that our cash flow wasn't right for that week's pay. As we're working out, or as Stephanie's working out what needs to be paid on that Wednesday, Jimmy's then on the other side, making sure that whoever hasn't paid has paid, to make sure that she can do her job and everyone can be paid properly. So that's probably one of the harder things about working with family. Like, you feel the pressure and you feel the stress of it all.
And he always will handle a challenge like head on. He's not afraid of anything. He's a pretty impressive guy, and I know that coming from me it might not seem like much, but he really, really is. He's a very, very impressive man. He's unlike anyone that I've ever met before. And yeah, he's not afraid of making mistakes because he knows that he'll always learn, and it's very rare for Jimmy to make the same mistake twice.
The higher up of the boss you get, the more concentrated the shit that comes to you is. So let's make some levels here so that we can explain it with our hands. All right, let's say I'm here, upper manager's here, then you have a lower manager here, then you have, let's say, foreman here, then you have site work here. Road screwed. Get some crushed rock. Bang, foreman says yes, down. No, doesn't work, need a street sweeper. Foreman says, oh, a bit above my pay grade to spend $1,500, I better go to an operations manager. Bang, operations manager said, of course, we go to street sweeper. Then when the street sweeper's there, we don't have the traffic management permit, and the council come and close us down because we were just focusing on the road. Operations manager goes, oh shit, they've just came and closed down the job, the council, WorkSafe are there, everything else. I better go to my manager to say what's happened. Still underneath me. Now all of a sudden, the street sweepers ran into a house, and the garage is about to fall in. They go, before Jimmy sees it on the news, We should probably call him. So now we've got what turned from being a road problem that I would never know about is now a street sweeper inside a garage that it's not meant to be in problem, and that's the only time I find out about it. But now put that company wide. Put that with finance, put that with banks, lawyers, operations, EPA, whatever it is, councils, police like we have. Trucks get pulled over, we have cars get stolen sometimes, or like you just mentioned, machines burned. It's real hard because you sit there and the person who needs to help you and wants to help you and loves you and everything else like that. Like, it was never Steph's vision to dig holes, but she loves me a lot and I love her a lot. And if I need her to help me do invoicing, well, she'll stay up until 2 o'clock to do invoicing. She's becoming a foundational member of the office to build and where people go to her because I didn't have safety paperwork. She built it.
They've both always been very good at balancing the important things in life. And they're both fantastic parents. Like if one of the girls have something on, it doesn't matter what's going on in that work day, like their daughters come first. So the work-life balance is just, it's based on priority at the time. The end goal has always been to be the sort of the best. So hopefully we get there one day and we just keep taking the steps to get there.
I, at the time, never knew what was possible or what the future looked like. I just knew that Jimmy was very driven. He has a real desire for success and for greatness. His drive is something like I've never seen in anyone before.
I drove the truck for a few years and I dug the holes for a fair few years and I did the accounts for a few years, and then all of that, you know what you need. So just small progressive steps. The internet makes business look like, you know, you start today, get a fund tomorrow to pay you $10 million and bang, buy a Ferrari and send 30 people to work tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. It's a very, very slow process that also happens so fast that you end up going from digging holes in the beach, at the beach, which was when I used to go and operate for that guy when I had no work. And now all of a sudden, he works for me, you know, as a consultant for us. You know, I've got to meet him on Tuesday. How does that happen? Well, I don't know, but you end up going so quickly around in a circle that it's a good joyride to be part of. I like it. Yeah, I like driving the machines.
So you still get on, yeah?
When I can, yeah, but it's got to be the right job. Can't have a concreter talking to me, yelling at me to go a little bit deeper. Can't have the plumber saying to hook up the pipe or this guy to do this. Nah. Radio off, earbuds in, loading trucks, my nice safe space. I'll do it all day. But can't have the phone ring because then it's one of those fires that I've got to go put out. You know, and then can't have too many people on site. Has to be the right pile of dirt. So as you can tell, I don't really drive them that often no more.